Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to all of you who are joining us this morning. I know because of the interest in our webinars, we've got attendees from the continent itself, but sometimes we get, as I've indicated, some international guests. Welcome all. You are welcome in this, I'll say, intriguing topic on the smart cities, which is really one of the subjects or the topics that is of interest to ourselves as Future Cities Africa and the Municipal Edge. But I believe to our audience, our stakeholders, it's also an area of interest that really needs some exploration. As I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Zolani, and the surname is Zonyane, the editorial head within the Municipal Edge. I've got my team member, Dr. Kaywood, who will be working with us this morning in the background. Perhaps it's also wise to thank our co-sponsors in Ntiyiso Consulting Group, also Business Engineering. We are really glad to have this partnership. As I said in our previous webinar as well, that's what gives us fuel as we continue having these conversations, as we continue learning from each other, because in the main, this medium, this platform, is for us to draw experiences from each other in ensuring that we make our municipalities better municipalities, functional municipalities. In the panel this morning, we will be taking a presentation from Willem from Cape Agulhas, which is one of the municipalities within the smart municipality concept. There is some work that is developing, that is taking place from Cape Agulhas, who will be supported by Mr. Siyabonga Mnce, who is with the Western Cape Department of Local Government, together with David Kutsie. And bringing those three up front, it's also to demonstrate how these institutions, both at municipal level, provincial government, and national government, can work better together, support each other. Immediately after that lead presentation that will be shared, will allow Philip from Business Engineering just to link the work that Business Engineering and partners within that group are doing within the realm of digital transformation and working closely with municipalities. We've got Stephanie Chetty from the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, who will come in immediately after Philip has made the contributions and inputs. Just also sharing her experiences, past and present, Stephanie, as we have spoken about, but also what are the current developments and trends, as I've indicated, based on your experiences around smart cities, but touching more on spatial development and planning, which is one of the key areas that you focus on. We will then take Mr. Mielani Holeni and Fegazwam, also just bringing the audience on what is it that Ntiyiso Consulting Group is doing. I know way back in 2022, there was a series on the future of cities, and again, it will be great to create those linkages. Currently, what is Ntiyiso Consulting Group is involved in. And lastly, you will have Ukutlwano from SALGA. Again, Kutlwano, as we have discussed, it's going to be the issue of how does SALGA, as this umbrella body and a very important stakeholder in local government, what are the initiatives, programs that SALGA is involved in supporting municipalities around this digital transformation that we're talking about? Because without that, definitely some, if not most of our municipalities won't be able to make it through. To the audience, we always appreciate your presence because, as we always say, without you, we can't have these conversations. But we've got a little bit of a spanner this morning that we will be taking questions from the Q&A function. Because what we've noticed in the past, we lose some of the questions. Yes, we'll still look at the comments, but given the congestion of the program, the interest in the topic, our focus will be more on the Q&A function. Another request, let's make our questions concise because we often probably not even get to other questions because of their length, and probably some of them not necessarily in line with the topic that we are discussing today. In all that, welcome to all of you. Just like previous conversations, this is our 4th year. It's gonna be an interesting one. It's gonna be an informative one. But for those who want to learn from Cape Agulhas, who want to learn how the Department of Local Government in the Western Cape is supporting Cape Agulhas, I think this morning will be the great platform for that. Without really wasting time, colleagues, let me hand over to Willem, who will take the first portion of the presentation, then followed by Mr. Mne, who will then be followed by Mr. Kutsia, in ensuring that they just break the ice for us to be able to have a conversation around smart cities, smart municipality, and the role of digital transformation within that initiative. Mr. Willem, welcome, and you can take it over.
Thank you so much for having me here today. Hi, everyone. My name is Willem van Zyl. I'm the CIO here at Cape Agulhas Municipality. So I think I'm just going to get right into it. When they requested us to talk about what we are doing at Cape Agulhas, I thought of, should I talk about how we see a smart city or what we are doing? So I think the focus today will be what we are doing at Cape Agulhas Municipality. I think it's important to understand that it's quite a big process to start with, but it's also nothing much other than you are doing already. Next slide, please. So when we started with this strategy in 2017, having talked about it internally, we eventually came up with the strategy and we identified 5 focus areas with the smart theme therein. With the first one being smart safety, smart infrastructure, smart economy, smart governance, and smart environment. So those were the focus areas identified in the smart city. Next slide, please. So the part of this was to align what we intend to do, set out to do, what we think we should do, to the current strategies within the municipality. So we need to understand that there needs to be a citizen-centric approach, but we also need to focus on internal operational aspects when we look at smart city, the strategy itself. So we'll align this to our IDP and various other strategies and institutional challenges that we had. But we also realized that can't be a short-term thing. We need to do this for at least 20 years or longer, looking forward into the future, so that we know where we are going. So whilst we were looking at the strategy, we also decided we needed some principles we wanted to adhere to. So we came up with these 4: putting people first because of the citizen-centric part of things, the social economic development side of things, because we want people in our communities to grow, but also our environment to grow and our municipal space to grow. We also had to consider financial and institutional sustainability and environmental sustainability. From a financial sustainability, we had to consider what can we afford and how can we do it, but also in the long term. What can we over time enhance, what processes, what efficiencies we can bring in to make this an affordable solution in the long run. Okay, so after all this we've done, went through this whole strategic approach and developing the strategy, we actually developed, or we went through quite a lengthy supply chain process. As you're all aware, it's in the municipal space. There can be a lot of challenges around supply chain. After we've appointed a service provider that assisted us with developing a smart city roadmap. We came up with this concept of Project Sphere, where we engage every department, every user, even every stakeholder in the municipality to see how can this smart city strategy work within those focus areas that we've identified. Looking at the next slide, please. So building this roadmap, we looked at all departments, as I said, building control, infrastructure, supply chain, protection services. We even looked at how it impacts the municipal manager. And all the departments were included in this. Next slide, please. So after this, we developed within this focus areas, we looked at where does every department fit into which focus area, and how we can build a solution, because we understood that we need to take a holistic approach to whatever we develop, looking at not solutions, but by identifying problems, we can identify how we can enhance things, how we can bring efficiencies in, and then over time develop products that can be used, for instance, in more than one application. With a collection of data can be used for multiple purposes, whether it's from operational point of view, or it's from a reporting point of view, or just management information. We're trying to see what type of information we need, what type of information is required. The next slide, please. So then we came to the point where we had to say, okay, now that we've identified what the issues or problems were in each department, how can we solve that? And to do that, it's always difficult to find the right approach in doing that. So we tend to look at various methodologies out there that can be used. So the one thing that came out, and this is not a new principle, this is a principle that has been used for years, and the interesting thing is that this is nothing new. This is just an old way of doing new things. So we took the approach of looking at people, process, and technology, and how does this fit into the smart city space, into the smart city concept. Next page, please. As you have seen in the previous section, we spoke about the people, process, and technology, but we also realized that smart city has different maturity levels, starting from smart city 1.0 up into smart city 2.0, but we needed to understand what this meant for Cape Agulhas Municipality. So looking at people, process, and technology, we realized that whenever we want to implement a solution to resolve an identified problem, we took an IoT approach to implement solutions. So what we looked at is we look at this graph on the screen. This is an IoT principle for development, but not also the only development of product. We can also use this methodology for implementing solutions, where it's an iterative loop with various, iterative loop meaning there's a starting point where we start with identifying the solution, starting to implement possible, identifying the problem, in implementing various solutions to resolve that problem and bringing efficiencies in. But starting in the loop, for instance, we start with measuring data. So that data, typically, from a technology point of view, a lot of data is captured in systems or through sensors or whatever it might be, where we start to collect data. But the data then, through that loop, needs to be communicated either through a network or through physical paper or whatever means there might be. And that data needs to be aggregated and analyzed in the system. So throughout this process, you will see you need to reassess every step that you in the loop that you follow, until to a point where you can visualize that data, irrespective of what the solution might be, so that you can make an informed decision on what the next action or step will be. And that is where we get to the people part. So the problem, or not the problem, the issue is how do you get from Smart City 1.0 to Smart City 2.0? So if you go to the next slide, please. Here you'll see a typical, so this is when we developed this roadmap, we came up with this approach in deciding on looking at those various loops and how we can improve that loop throughout the process and improve the solutions or the problem, or get better solutions to the problems we have identified. So as you can see here, the outer part, we're looking at the what, hows, and whys of implementing a solution when making use of the methodology. So loop one when loop one is done, you can go to loop 2, 3, 4, and there can be multiple loops until you find the right solution to the problem. But these loops can always be ongoing. So once you move from the technology side, because the initial point was it was technology driven for most of the solutions, where you sit within Smart City 1.0, the next step, once you went through all those loops that you required, you go to the next step. When technology has been implemented, you can go to the process point, where you see what processes do you need to redefine for us in the municipality, and how to make use of those, enhance those processes to add additional value to the municipality and to that problem we have identified, whichever department it might be. So this is an ongoing process where you can once again continue with those loops, whether it's a new solution to complement the previous solution, or utilizing the same data that was collected from the first version and use that for a different solution. That is where the processes are refined, and up until the point where in Smart City 2.0, we get actually to the people being the citizen and how they can interact with technology that is applied by the municipality, whether it's a smart meter or whether it's a municipal app that can be enhanced. So the intent is, so in the perfect world, you will go from Smart City 1 to Smart City 2.0 fairly easy, but you need to realize that different solutions might be at different points in this smart city methodology. Versus some might mean Smart City 1.0 and others might still be at Smart City 2.0. Okay, next step, please. So for us, so that was from a methodology point of view. So then Cape Agulhas had to understand what is our current environment and what is it that we need. So the first thing we realized is that we needed, we have various needs for various solutions or problems that we identified. So we started building our own LoRaWAN network because of the initial problems identified was very much reliant on sensory equipment, and we had to measure and measure what is going on those sensors. So we established a LoRa network in the municipality, but quite quickly realized that because of the loop methodology that we followed, the IoT methodology we followed, and the fact that it's very agile in its development phases, we also realized quite quickly on that early on that you can not only be reliant on one type of network, you need to be considering different types of networks with different types of implementations. Because some data you might only need on a daily basis, on a half-daily basis, or hourly basis, but some data could be a lot more, the frequency of data could be a lot more than others, which will mean you will require a different type of network. So we had to reassess that on an ongoing basis, and we are still doing that as we go along. Next slide, please. In order to do that, those networks, we wanted to understand how to. We understood that we need to monitor and we need to manage and we need to control certain elements from an operational technology point of view in order to get management information and to aggregate that data so that we can actually analyze that data and build the relevant dashboards or reports so that management can make informed decisions. So the network part was key for us as a starting point, as baseline in loop one, or as the base loop for building future solutions. The next slide, please. So the first thing we started out with, this is actually not the first thing but one of the key things in the infrastructure department in the municipality we started was we had an issue around water conservation and demand management. This was back in 2020, I think, when there was a lot of droughts, and we are very reliant in the coastal areas on aquifers for water. and getting that water out of the ground. So we developed this solution with our solutions provider to start looking at what is the aquifer levels of water, how much water we are pumping. So from the water supply side, we wanted to understand exactly what's going on. Then moving on to the demand side, understanding what the demand are, so that we can properly manage the whole water solution around that and monitor it in close to real time, and also be reactive on alerts if something happens, like water losses or a lot of power consumption, whatever the case might be. The next slide, please. This is just some additional pictures of how we've implemented that solution, where we've implemented the sensory equipment to actually get that data from the system. And this updates on about every minute of the day. Okay, please continue. The next part was actually the very first thing we did was the safety side, where we actually got grant funding from province to implement CCTV solutions throughout the municipality. So we tried to develop, next slide please, a solution that was inclusive of various aspects of CCTV, not only just for viewing, but also for analytics or reporting or alerts built into that solution, so we can act from a safety point of view. Please continue. Okay, the next component is smart environment. We're looking at various, once again, monitoring equipment or sensors, how to monitor and look after the environment and analyze what's going on in the environment. Please continue. So the first thing we did was we looked at the air quality. We procured a mobile air quality monitoring unit that the air quality control unit can use and put down in any place they deem fit to monitor the air quality. Please continue. And the second part, which is quite recent, as 2024, we started implementing noise sensors noise sensors, decibel sensors in certain hotspot areas that was identified, and also that is mobile enough to can be moved around if so required. So this is not complying to actual legal requirements, but this is for us to monitor what's going on in a certain area, so we know where to act if needed from a law enforcement point of view and from a nuisance point of view. Okay, and then the next phase, what we've done from a governance and communication point of view. Next slide. We implemented the collaborative municipal app, which is used throughout various municipalities in the Western Cape and through the country, I suppose. Where the citizen can actually engage with us, get their municipal accounts on the app, register service requests, and also get general information of the municipality in the palm of their hands. And this is a very nice communication tool to engage with the citizen on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Building plans and town planning application portal. We've also implemented that for some time. I think that's been there for, I think actually before the smart city strategy was even in place, but that way people can also submit their plans electronically, and there's no need for them. And the whole process has been automated internally to put additional controls in place for the municipality in the building control and town planning department when it comes to submission of plans. Okay, and then I think this is quite close to the last slide, economy. Next slide, please. Here, the only thing we've done at this stage, we've realized that there's areas in the municipal where there's areas where there's low income areas in the municipality where people don't necessarily have access to Wi-Fi and internet. So this we implemented in 2019 already, and the Western Cape government also rolled out their own networks for public Wi-Fi. But this was something we've done started in 2019. So at each ward, as a bare minimum, especially in the low income areas, people can get access to the Wi-Fi or to internet, whether it's for schools or for people wanting to start a business. At least those who can't afford it, they have access to the internet. And you can see this was actually statistics of last year. So we're sitting about just over 30,000 users now who are registered on the Wi-Fi. not actively using it daily because there's a lot of tourists and people like that as well that might have been registered. But at least we can see there's quite a lot of activity and we can monitor the areas where it's most active, which is the lower income areas, which is good for us to continue. So challenges we face over the few years, the human factor, I think the high turnover of personnel can become an issue, especially when people leave the organization and new people come with new ideas, and that pose a risk to a strategy or any type of implementation we've done, as people might not agree with that. So that's something you need to manage and understand through a process. And I think applying proper project management principles, which is also nothing new, and getting a good project sponsor can mitigate those risks. I think that's an area where we can enhance on. But it's good to get although there might be initial buy-in, but to keep people aware of where you are, what's going on. And then safeguarding of technology on the cyber threats and risks going around these days, everybody's fully aware thereof. This is quite a big consideration we need to take into account. And then analytics and safeguarding of data. Analytics, I think the more data you collect, the more overwhelmed you may become with what is going on. But I think having a good strategy around how you want to analyze data and what you want to do with that is very important as well. So there are a few challenges that we face. Obviously, there's a lot more, but I think that is it from my side. Yeah, that's just the timeline we had over the past years with our implementation. Small other things in between, but those are the bigger things we've done. And I think that's the end of my story. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleagues. The next part will come from my side. My name is Siyabonga. Surname is Mngce from the Department of Local Government, Western Cape Government. I'm heading the ICT support to all municipalities in the Western Cape. And our focus is mainly on ICT governance, policy, strategy, as well as risk management. I must say, Chairperson, let me first say thank you. I'm pleased to be part of today's panel and to follow on this inspiring presentation, from Cape Agulhas. So what I'll be sharing from your side is from the Western Cape government perspective, specifically on how we support our municipalities, not only Cape Agulhas, but all municipalities within the Western Cape, except the city, through strengthening the ICT governance as a key and enabler to the digital transformation and also a smart city success. Now, one would ask, why do we want to focus on ICT governance? Because we believe that ICT governance becomes the backbone through which the technology initiatives, digital transformation, smart city or smart municipalities flow. So without the ICT governance being strengthened, then we believe that municipalities would not know to be able to realize that value. So what we are doing is to now start to move ICT from being taken as an operational function to be seen as a strategic partner where it starts to create value in the municipality. We recently had a summit where we called it a local government innovation summit, where we had one of our topics were saying that how do we move ICT from bunker to boardroom? So that is what we are driving to municipalities. And with that, we started to deal with the revision of the corporate governance of ICT policy framework. You realize, those especially that are working in the municipalities, that since 2022, the DPSA, through cabinet, approved the corporate governance of ICT policy framework. And then from there, we started, as the Western Cape, to review the corporate governance of ICT policy framework from our side to municipalities, because we believe that we needed to bring it into today and ensure that it aligns with the realities at municipalities. I think you've just moved very quick, Divet. If you can just go back quickly. Yes, thank you. Our focus was mainly on emphasizing the role that the strategic leadership need to play, in that value creation, because we've realized that that is actually where the implementation should start. Because if you leave behind your strategic leadership, people that are supposed to be buying in on your initiative and ensuring that there is investment on ICT that is going to be contributing to the achievement of the strategic objectives, then you won't be able to achieve what you needed to achieve. So we needed to ensure that the strategic leadership is on board. And from there, we cannot forget that we needed to deal with the issues that we're experiencing through their governance structures. Because as much as the municipalities, have got the structures like the IT steering committee, but they actually establish those steering committees, but without knowing exactly those members, knowing what their responsibility should be. So it becomes a tick box exercise that yes, we had a meeting, but now we needed to shift them from just attending those meetings into now starting to discuss as to where does this ICT investment go? What is our long-term goal, as Velem alluded to, so that we can be able to bring everyone on board. And with that, we needed to ensure that monitoring is also part of the governance system of ICT, where we start to bring in the risk management, the risk officers. We bring in internal audit. We bring in also the external audit to also understand what their role should be, in the whole governance system. And we also engage municipality in setting up that strategic direction, because we've realized that municipalities develop those IT strategies for the sake of developing one, or they become just an operational plan where it's actually not forward looking, or even in fact speaking to the IDP itself, as like what Cape Agulhas has done. So we needed to ensure that we bring in and municipalities to understand what are their strategic risks, because once you start to innovate, now, there is also another element one need to be looking at, is the element of risk, because risk also increases when you start to bring in some of the innovation. We had to also look at the issues of mitigating those risks, and Tivet will be alluding to that in the later slides. And we needed to ensure that those oversight committees I spoke about, they now start to be functional, they know exactly what they need to do, and we establish some rules and the practices that the ICT need to be ensuring and bring everyone on board. And we needed to also emphasize, the role of ICT in service delivery, and also bring about everyone within the municipality, meaning that from the ICT side and also business to be on board. Next slide. Now, through our revision, I'm just showing you this approach that we took. The one that you see on the left-hand side is a rigid approach, which is the current one that is on implementation through DPSA, whereby each and every document, strategic enabling strategy, the corporate governance of ICT policy framework, the charter, the risk management, the ICT governance, all of them, and the IT policies point to council. Right. So now we needed to change that during our review, and implemented a different approach, but still that is still aligned with the current policy approach. And the one that we've introduced is a two-tier one. You'll see that the upper one, where we are looking at the council in the revised one would be looking at approving only the municipal governance of ICT policy. And from there, they also approve the implementation of the charter. And then from that layer, then we look at the lower layer. I'm saying two-tier because the municipal manager, as a person that approves the management of ICT framework, then also becomes the chairperson of the ICT steering committee. And now you will realize that there are policies that were all pointing to council and also other documents. Now in the new approach, now we have came up with what we can call a management domains. That is where all the other policies sit in, because we've realized that those are actually not policies. They should be practices. And the practices do not have to go to council, otherwise it's taking council too much time for them to be able to just to attend and approve only a small change that end up taking a municipality about 11 months to do, and which end up leading to audit findings. So now we introduced what we can call a delegation approach. And this delegation approach and the entire revision is aligned with ISO 27000, with NIST, and also COVID, to make sure that it's deeply rooted on ICT governance and also risk management, and also ensure that it is in line with the rooted realities in the municipalities. Because we didn't want to just develop a policy out of developing a policy, but it needed to speak to exactly the environment in the municipalities. And of course, also ensure that it is informed by the findings municipalities have been receiving over the years. And we needed to change that. Next slide, thanks. Now, what are the benefits from the entire revision of the ICT governance? What we needed to do is to ensure that the council only received one policy, that they needed to approve, not too many policies, about 7 to 8 policies that they need to look at. And mind you, some of our councillors, they actually just approve these policies, not even knowing what's happening in those policies, but it becomes a rubber stamping exercise. So now with the one that they are going to be approving, it's a policy that set a strategic direction to say, this is what we want to achieve in this municipality using ICT to achieve our strategic objectives. Now, there's also a less content for councillors to engage on, right? But with that, we ended up developing such key focus areas where the councillors need to engage on, to at least give them a much more satisfaction to say that the ICT investment does realize the value in that municipality. And we created a flexible and customizable a policy that can be customized by municipalities to ensure that it is aligned with their environment. And we needed also to ensure that we bring along the risk mitigation I spoke about earlier on, and ensure that we bring along those governance structures to start to play their role and understand deeply as to what they needed to do. And we needed also to include how the use of ICT will be managed, and functioning, meaning that looking at both ICT and also business, including the delegation I spoke about, as well as the ICT steering committee. Next slide. Right, now to come to our support. I'm mentioning the ICT governance now because for us it is a key one in order for us to have some sort of a ground to be able to build up. So amongst many of the support that we provide to municipalities, now we needed to come up with a vision, a maturity vision for our municipalities, where we needed to ensure that we strengthen the ICT governance system at municipalities, and that is need to be deeply rooted in ensuring that we bring along our strategic leadership, to be part of this, and they needed to lead the innovation in municipalities and make sure that they do not also leave the risk element behind it. So we needed to realize that vision by understanding our municipality, implementing the maturity assessment in municipalities. We got a 3.5 there because we are saying that at least a municipality, if they are at 3.5, then they are at least a much more of a resilient a level, if we can put it that way. So anything above the 3.5, then the municipality will be able to be able to implement this innovation and be able to plan ahead. So we are ensuring that we put our support and our energy and everything towards those that are below the 3.5. Developed a category from 1 to 3 where we can be able to develop a differentiated approach in supporting municipalities, and also in investing in whatever innovation that they have. Now, our support is mainly focusing on promoting the strategic adoption of emerging digital methodologies and also ensuring that we promote, the municipal institutionalization of municipal governance in municipalities to ensure that they, they have those fit for business systems and also technology architecture, and also not forgetting the collaboration that we needed to create, with other relevant departments as well as organizations like SALGA, the likes of provincial and national treasury. And you remember that national treasury now is busy with the MSCOA refresh, and therefore we needed to ensure, upon our discussion with NT, we needed to ensure that we strengthen the ICT governance in order for us to be able to achieve what we needed to achieve. And also not forgetting the area of capacity building and training, because the reality is the country is in shortage of skills, and we do not have people that are able to drive this kind of innovations. So for us, we had to sit around the table and start to analyze, how do we deal with the issue of capacitation in municipalities. And one of the key things that we came about is the issue of shared services, because if Cape Agulhas, for example, is much more capacitated, they are able to provide, then how do we sit around the table and say, how do municipalities work together? How does this municipality support this one, so that they can be able to create that shared services program, and for our municipalities to be able to progress, all at one. And last slide from my side, just to give you, this whole linkage from ICT governance and also the element of risk. What we are saying is that governance lays the foundation, for the secure systems, and positioning ICT governance as a strategic asset that drives organizational resilience, of which I've alluded to. Because what we need to achieve at the end of the day is to make sure that there is accountability, and while they are doing that, they needed to ensure that they elevate and strengthen the issues of risk, and make sure that they put those mitigating measures there. They've got controls, and they also allocate responsibilities, to ensure everyone is on board, not only the ICT department, but everyone within the municipality, because ICT is everyone's business. And ultimately, we want to ensure that we achieve the digital trust, from the municipality, the organization itself, and also to the public out there. I'll leave it to my colleague Divet to talk on the next slide.
Zulani, can I just have an indication before I start from your side? We've overrun our time already. Do you want me to continue? I'll take about 4 minutes.
Yes, Tivet, if you can maybe conclude, let's say in the next 5 minutes, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we've established a cybersecurity task team in 2023, and the purpose of the task team was to improve the maturity of cybersecurity and security mechanisms, but also the wider scope of the governance, strategic governance and operational governance of ICT within municipalities. So we established the scalable toolkit. I will go a little bit into this, that measures where municipalities are. It gives them a bit of a dashboard of where they are, and what gaps they have and how to fill those gaps. And it is based on policies, and a standard set of policies that the province made available to municipalities in 2016, which basically still addresses about 80% of the cybersecurity requirements. So what we did is we used that as a foundational baseline, and we added to that elements from the ISO standard, from NIST, and so on. We collaborate with Department of Communication and Digital Technology, Cybersecurity Hub. We collaborate with SALGA, and we collaborate with the state IT agency on this. The process that we followed was, phase 1 is taken care of by municipalities. We don't worry about that. Phase 2 is assess the current landscape. Phase 3 was to measure with NIST to see where the gaps in the current landscape are in general as a province as well as per municipality. And we are currently in phase 4. We have developed the municipal governance of ICT policy framework with its management framework and management domains that Siyabonga alluded to, and that is on its way for approval to be distributed to municipalities for implementation. Then after that, in phase 5, we go into continuous improvement, and continuous improvement includes keeping an eye on what's happening in frameworks nationally and internationally, and updating the guidance that we give to municipalities. When a municipality does uses the toolkit, this is typically the 5 or the 6 areas that we measure through the toolkit. So it's based on this, as you can see. And the benefits to municipalities are they can immediately see, it's a scale of 1 to 5 that we have here, they can immediately see to what extent they have the implementation maturity has progressed, where the gaps are. So it goes from green on to red, and it informs their risk register, it informs their conversation with executive management, and it informs the budget measures that are required for going into the future. Just an example of what the spider diagrams look at the end. You will see we've got the identify maturity, we've got the protect maturity. This is an example of one of our municipalities that did the assessment. What we are trying to achieve is to get all municipalities on at least a 3.5 out of 5 on the scale. And that is where our individual support to municipalities come in. As Siyabonga said, we've got 3 categories of municipalities, and we concentrate our efforts on the municipalities that have weaker outcomes. Continuous improvement, we're going to do an annual assessment. So we take the assessment of the previous year, outcomes of the previous year, give it to the municipality, they can update it and see how they've progressed. We will continue with the alignment with NIST and ISO 27000. This is not a NIST implementation. This is taking NIST and customizing it for a municipal environment. So for instance, if a municipality doesn't do system development is not included in the control system. In our going forward, we are looking at establishing a CERT in the Western Cape through the Cybersecurity Task Team and our IT Managers Forum, and investigate the establishment of a district CISO function. And the reason for this is it's quite an expensive resource. And from what we've analyzed, it looks like a CISO will be able, a qualified CISO will be able to handle more than one municipality. So look at it from a district function. There are also other elements that come in with that. And colleagues, thank you very much. That's my last slide.
Thanks a lot, colleagues, for that wonderful presentation. Just before you come in, Philip, I think for me, what is coming through, and I've allowed all this time because, number one, the presentation itself, apart from the topic or the subject that we are discussing this morning, the spirit of cooperative governance, as we can see coming through from the Department of Local Government in the Western Cape, in supporting municipalities, because sometimes we expect a lot from municipalities with the assumption that they've got all the necessary tools, all the necessary infrastructure that they require in terms of delivering on these concepts. But beyond Section 41 of the Constitution, in terms of cooperative governance, is the issue of the support, which also becomes very important, because with smart cities come many risks that David has touched on, which has also come through in some of the questions. it therefore becomes important from that particular angle. Colleagues, at some point we were at 171 participants, including ourselves. That's great. At the moment, we are at 162. Now, I'm mentioning that because as soon as Philip comes in, we will run just a quick poll. And it will be great that all of us do participate. It's very short and is part of the data gathering on some of these issues that we are scrambling with. Philip, as I welcome you in, and again, as I've indicated, just a perspective of business engineering around digital transformation, the initiatives that you are currently involved with, so that we can also appreciate the role of the private sector in contributing towards better municipalities, smart cities, but most importantly, on how municipalities and citizens can then interact in the process of running a municipality as a business. Welcome, Philip, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zulani. And thank you very much for the opportunity. I think to start off with, what we've seen in the last few slides in the last hour is a very structured approach. I think one needs to commend municipalities such as Cape Agulhas for the amount of time and effort that they've invested in structuring the approach. And as you could see from the presentation, they know exactly what they need to do during the next phase of their journey in getting to a smart environment. Something that you've just mentioned that I think is very important for us to remember is that not all municipalities are equal. Not all municipalities are at the same level. We see this daily with the metropolitan areas, sort of becoming islands towards themselves, and then the rural municipalities, sort of sucking at the back end of the I don't want to call it a revolution, but the smart city evolution. And in saying that, it's also important to understand that you can go to any small village or small town in South Africa, and you will find an aspect of a smart city environment. Smart street lights going up, solar lights being installed, all small various components. And that's really, we need to thank national government for funding, because there is funding that is being given to municipalities to ensure that they embark on the smart city rejuvenation projects, and they are doing what they can do. They're not all on the same level as maybe what we've seen now, but at least something's been done. So I'm very excited about the whole evolution, the whole smart city concept. The advent of AI is also bringing significant changes to paradigms that I think we've thought that will set out in our 5 and 6 year plans. So a lot of things are being automated quicker than I think that we've initially anticipated. If we look at the role that we sort of play and the areas that we focus on, it's really on the core business processes and getting the municipal environment or our customer environments to embrace a digitized environment. You can't really do anything if you're not focused on digitization in some form of your core business processes. Mention was also made with regards to the ICF, the revamp of the M-Score processes by National Treasury, which again is a formidable initiative in getting organizations and municipalities just to that initial level. Electronic records management is a simple component, but you have to start somewhere. And you cannot submit building plans electronically and accept payments via all sorts of or various apps if you don't have the core business processes sorted out. So we're spending a lot of time in digitization of the core business processes in municipalities, and I must say that we're finding that customers, again, on a national basis, are embracing this. Yes, the guys and I don't want to mention names, but in rural Northern Cape and Limpopo are not maybe at the level that you'll find the larger towns in the country at, but they are doing something. And I think that is very exciting. So, Tlolani, and in closing, maybe the issue on cybersecurity is something that I think keeps a lot of us awake. It keeps me awake. And that's something that, you know, the more you expose your infrastructure and the more you work with regards to digitalization and getting external parties to participate, increasing service level environments, and the more you're opening yourself up to external threats and scams and all sorts of things that are happening on a daily basis. So care should be taken, or caution should be taken. That's not really something that we typically get involved in, but it's something that we see an area that we can't neglect if we look at the utilization of municipal environments and just infrastructure in general going forward. Thank you, Tlolani. Zolani, I don't know if there's anything else you want me to perhaps focus on.
No, thanks for that, Philip.
Welcome,
I think as the questions are coming through, then we'll be able to interact even more. And I will request the panel just to be in the lookout. I think there was one question that already came through, which has been answered already in the Q&A session, but I'll also allow live reflections on some of these questions. And once more, I think you touched on quite an important point, which also Willem touched on access, because it's one thing to have all these digital transformation initiatives, but if they don't get used by ordinary citizens, because at the end of the day, business processes in municipalities, as we've indicated, very important, but for whose benefit are those business processes, which indeed are the citizens? I think that's very important. It then also gives other municipalities an idea of where to start. And if one has to reach quite a number of citizens and customers, I think the approach by Cape Agulhas in investing in technology infrastructure, it becomes very important. Colleagues, we'll be taking the...
Zolani, sorry. I just wanted to add something also that Willem said, you know, you have to make sure you have enough money continually to fund the process. Otherwise, it's a start-stop type of environment. But yeah.
No, on the money, Philip, and I'm glad you are raising that point, because I always say, as a country, we are not a poor country. And again, it brings in, for those small rural municipalities that do not have, I'll say, a revenue base, how does national and provincial governments come in? How does the private sector come in terms of ensuring that the money doesn't become an issue in ensuring that we've got functional municipalities, we ease the access of services and interface by customers with municipalities. But I think even Mielani will touch on this particular issue of partnerships, because it's only through them that we'll be able to solve our problems. I think for the most of the times, we've allowed municipalities to be standalone entities without the necessary support. To a point where even some private entity players also decide to take a backseat. But it also goes back on how we manage our municipalities as well. I think for me, we will get it right if we've got municipalities that are getting it right. No, thanks for that. A quick poll that is going to come up, colleagues. As I've indicated, we run these polls for specific purposes. And today it's about smart cities, smart municipalities, smart citizens, but ultimately on improving service delivery. The poll we have, it's about digital transformation, that it is a foundational step, and I think it has come through even through the presentations that a municipality might undertake to modernize its operations. Now, it doesn't matter the organization that you are coming from, because I've seen from municipalities, provincial departments, national departments, academia, private sector. Does your organization have a digital transformation plan in place? And again, we've got a single choice that we need to make. As I've indicated, if all of us, the 158 that are currently on this webinar at the moment, if we can just answer that particular question, I will be allowing the next 30 seconds for all the responses to come through so that we can have that data as well. As we are busy with the call, as I've indicated, I will be allowing our next panelist, Stephanie, who will just be coming through the experiences that, Stephanie, you have experienced, the work that you are involved with, given this evolution, as Philip has mentioned, of, I would say, digital transformation, yes, but when you talk smart cities and the entire value chain, and you'll be coming from the spatial planning side of things, what is your experience and your insights, and perhaps where we are, what is it that we can even do better for those integrations and alignments? And again, for those of you who have participated in the poll, thanks a lot. We appreciate your inputs and insights. Stephanie, welcome, and you can take it over.
Thanks, Solani, and a very good morning to all. Just want to appreciate the 3 presentations that we've had on the call. Really interesting. A huge congratulations to the municipality on the smart city strategy, and also learning from the Western Cape province on the ICT policy framework. So I think very important, and coming from a national department, all familiar with the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. We play a very critical role, and we're based in the presidency on making sure that we center around aligning national planning with digital transformation through geospatial governance. And perhaps just to reflect on some of these initiatives when it comes to smart cities, and looking at the presentations and the examples being presented here, we know that it's critical that smart cities use digital tools, data, and innovation to improve efficiency and service delivery, as well as going beyond infrastructure. And it's really about the people, and that's what we've seen coming through both the presentations, or the 3 presentations, and about processing data and securing data and protecting it, and also ensuring institutional alignment. So one of the things that we resonate with at the Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation is on geospatial intelligence and using AI capabilities and to empower then our citizens, but really around smart intelligence and foundation. And what does this mean? So just in terms of some of the experiences that I had around when I started at DPME, was we started to embark on a geospatial information management strategy, where we actually are currently institutionalizing it at DPME. It's really about taking the strategy and to empower municipalities with spatial data to plan, monitor, and deliver on services, and to support local-based decision-making, as well as hotspot analysis and priority investment in terms of targeting. So just in contextualizing what we've seen and the examples that we've had presented earlier, it's really about recognizing spatial legacies and diversities, that there are differences between metro, small towns, and rural municipalities, and a one-size-doesn't-fit-all. So as you've seen from the presentations coming in, they are very important focus areas when it comes to safety, infrastructure, economic governance, and the environment. And we also believe that we need to adapt to these and to have a community-orientated process. And citizens are indeed the co-creators when it comes to digital empowerment, as well as then essential to the success of achieving smart city initiatives. Just to also look at some of the initiatives coming out from the strategy as well by the municipality, we've seen that's very important on promoting digital literacy, citizen-facing platforms such as apps, and you've seen some of the apps that they have developed, where it reports on services and reports on online engagements. And we at DPME has also developed a tool to engage on dashboards, where we can actually see live data coming in, and to also participate and monitor, process, and to track this initiative. Just to stem back on some of the experiences and the whole of government collaboration, we work very closely as well with Stats SA, with the Department of Cooperative Governance, National Treasury, and CETA, joint efforts are very vital in a process like this to ensure standardized formats, that we improve digital tools, and we are part of the broader frameworks in government, such as the Medium-Term Development Plan, the National Spatial Development Framework, and the District Development Model. And I think particularly interesting from the conversations that we're hearing is around sustainability and resilience, and how do we ensure geospatial technologies are helping to address the issues on the ground, like energy, water, climate, and land use challenges, and to use satellite data and predictive analysis for early warning systems and climate adaptation, and really about promoting smart infrastructure and greening technologies for long-term smart resilience. And we've seen that coming out in the strategy. We've seen the initiatives on focusing on the environment. And some of the examples that we have produced at DPME is really around municipal dashboards, where we track service delivery in real time, spatial profiling of wards for equitable budgeting, and I think the issue around budgeting came about as well, and the integration of including geospatial information systems into our municipal policies and plans, such as our IDPs and SDFs, and to enhance partnerships across our universities, private sectors, and communities. And for the colleagues that's here on the platform, we will be launching our geospatial information strategy on the 16th of September, where we really look forward to engaging municipalities, provinces, and other interested parties in training the planners and the data officers. And we really look forward to engaging with some of you. And then just to say, for the colleagues that have presented and those that are on the chat, it's really about highlighting and supporting these initiatives to transform our municipalities and our governments, as well as to ensure that we promote data governance and to monitor and evaluate real-time spatial intelligence and to foster those partnerships. It's important, as well as the theme of this conversation is really to support municipalities on the journey from vision to victory. Thanks, Alani. I'll hand back to you.
Thanks a lot for that, Stephanie. Those insights are quite helpful, and perhaps you'll also agree with me to say, yes, spatial planning or development might be seen as a function in many municipalities, but embedding technology, digital transformation becomes very important, exactly for the reasons that you have stated, because often we complain about how, I'll say, imbalanced our spatial setup is in our country. But then if we have those conversations and discussions, relying on data that we gather through technological advancements, I believe we can then go a long way as a country. But then again, I think in taking the conversation further in terms of the questions that are coming through, if maybe you can start looking at those, because I think there are also some that are directed to you. But what is important, yes, what is important for me, colleagues, and again, that cooperative governance, because if you take it from Stephanie's input, that becomes important. The coordination at a national level based on her input. But again, in terms of our first presentation, the role of provincial governments working with municipalities. Having seen one of the questions, just on the challenges of how as a small rural municipality can one get an active role to play in digitalizing those collaborations, interfaces, and close working relationships. I believe it's something that will not only help our municipalities, but help our citizens for better services, for better interface with municipalities as business entities. As we move to Mr. Mielani Oleni, and again, as I've indicated earlier on, Ntiyiso Consulting Group, among the key three business focus areas, there has been a feature on the future of the cities, but I believe since then a lot has been happening, and I believe your input, as I indicated earlier on, will also touch on your fascinating presentation last week when we had a meeting in Sikfaro Gauteng, a branch, to say Let's move from this tripartite alliance in terms of local government, provincial government, and national government working together. Let's see how best the space is opened and widened for the private sector to play a meaningful role. As I welcome you, it's also just to share your insights based on the topic today, but also in terms of the actual work, which is great because I follow the work that Ntiyiso Consulting Group is doing, especially in supporting its operations, in supporting the functionality of local government. And again, colleagues, we will be taking a second poll right after Mr. Oleni has come in. Also, it's a short one. If we can all participate and contribute, I will allow you to come in and welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping that I'm just trying to also simplify the message by putting up a few slides. Good morning to my fellow panelists, and thank you, facilitator, for giving us this opportunity. And of course, I think as our paths cross, there are multiple ideas that we are sharing, which I think we just want to share with everyone as we go along. One of the things I think that we have interpreted over the years is the understanding that technology is not technology for the sake of technology, but technology must be able to take us, somewhere. So perhaps this is a slide I would open with, which I think does not need any kind of interpretation or explanation, but to suffice, to indicate that I think the way that technology has been evolving, especially in our country as South Africa, but also on the continent, but globally as well, with the influences of Silicon Valley, we find ourselves in a position where we have to confront issues of development. So I think for us, we've started to place the message of technology, smart cities, digitalization, use of the derivatives of technology, whether it's AI, IoT, and all of these different things. They must mean something ultimately. So on the one hand, we understand that we are besieged with slums, or squatter camps, and in fact, it's inward migration into cities that would result in perhaps, not having proper dwelling facilities. But I think, technology, not just for me pressing or clicking the button, we can start using smart technologies to improve even the housing aspects of things, but also to look at the mobility of things and to use technology within the municipality, which is what I'm going to dwell on a little bit more. We employ basically a five, if you want, step approach in terms of how we deal with technology and how we implement it within the various clients that we work with. And also, this is a methodology or an approach that we deploy inside the firm. So whatever we are preaching out there is ideas that we also are consuming ourselves. We are going through a digital transformation ourselves. We have appointed, a CIO who is driving the initiatives. We have appointed, key people who have domain expertise around development and technology, so that, even us, as we talk to our clients, we are able to demonstrate without having to pull out, a case study, but we become the case study. So we've seen that, end-to-end solutions are crucial when we're talking about how do you deploy a large-scale technology which is going to impact, on the organization itself, to impact as well on the citizens. And I'll put some principles in terms of, how our approach is in terms of the technology. So we advocate that let's bring end-to-end solutions, not piecemeal to solve one problem one day and the next day we have to come up with another approach, and we end up with what, the famous, duct tape, approach where you're sticking things together. So I think what Cape Agulhas have put forward is something that, we definitely can follow, because it's based on a methodology, it's based on a thinking process, it's based on a step approach, and it really takes on everyone who is supposed to be part and parcel of the journey. And even those who just need to be informed are also part and parcel. So the ability as well to tailor make the solutions, because at times we take solutions that are so great, are so grand, And I'll give examples in terms of what we use within our own environment. We have a combination of the Google suite, of which our email is run on Google. We have your G drives, we have your Google Meets, and all of this technology. But we also have something quite interesting, which are Google Forms, which we've recently seen that we can also use it to also digitize our own information within the organization. So those solutions that can be tailor-made, we need to bring those tailor-made solutions, because as Stephen was also saying, as well as the previous colleagues, there's no one size fits all. We have to look at the different influences that the municipalities, the districts, or the cities, and even broadly government, what the requirements are, which are also going to impact positively on the citizens. So the ability to tailor-make solutions is important. And I think the issue of ownership, which I will qualify as total cost of ownership. We may go out and procure systems which at one stage may look affordable, but to build onto those systems becomes a costly exercise because of the scarcity of skills, because of the type of technology that perhaps may not be popular, or the platforms and the infrastructure which it must run on is not necessarily mature or is not widely used. So one of the other things is to look at how you improve that total cost of ownership by being able to bring in technologies that are widely used, where there can be economies of scale. I depart now to say we also use the Microsoft technology as a firm, which enables us to get to the security aspects, as was mentioned earlier by Philip, to talk about cybersecurity. So to use the things of Active Directory that help us to secure our internal environment. But the other thing is that we have to look at what the environment looks like. What do the people? How do the people behave? Is there a change management process that needs to be deployed, so that we can at least be able to understand what are people used to? And I think by cultural affinity, what are people used to? And you'll see that, the statement, that we put in, from our side is, it's people that, at least are, wanting to do things, people that, are cutting edge, of technology. And then the last part, which I put as a principle, is how to collaborate. So collaboration involves personal interactions, but it also involves us being able to deploy technology which is user-friendly, which we can develop, on top of that particular technology. So I think as an approach, I have taken what we use internally and what we look internally to also put forward, to say, as we go into the different environments, we don't want to deliver, or technology must never be just, one piece of excitement, that gets us, so excitement. Otherwise, we end up having the new toy syndrome, where we are excited about this toy, but we lose the essence of why we are doing what we are supposed to be doing. Tailor-making of solutions, and this is where, back to the methodologies that were shown earlier, a lot of interviews must be conducted to understand exactly what the requirements are, so that we don't think that this will look great, if we put it up and it misses what the business requirements are, as well as now we miss the opportunity to service the client better. And total cost of ownership is around spend money where you have the best bang for your buck, as well as the other two that I've described. But there are 5 principles which I think I'll break down in terms of how do we approach, or how should we approach this technology rollout going out into the market. So one, if it must be citizens driven. And if it's citizens driven, it must also have those aspects which focuses on the key customer. Secondly, the integrated thinking and integrated planning is what is also required. And you'll remember that the principles, as we put in the previous conversations, we have simply started enhancing and building a lot more flesh into how the integrated thinking looks like. Some of the examples I will give as I go through is how we've been able to translate planning, or at least matching of data from different sources. Take the severe general SG data, take the valuation roles, take the billing information, as well as any other external information that you can source from bureaus and be able to integrate it into a model that allows you to start, doing the thinking and the planning part of how to service customers better, how to bill customers better, or how to at least, service them with regards to taking in of their inputs and plans and so on. So the other issue is co-creation, which I'll go also deeper into. But we need to have also the coherence aspect. I won't talk too much about the coherence because it has been mentioned, which is pleasing to see how the provincial side as well as the municipal side are collaborating. But today we are also, quite, privileged to also have the national side to also bring in the coherence. So the coherence between the three spheres of government are also crucial, as well as, the governance within there. So very quickly, I think when we talk about citizens-driven, we want to get the best, participation from employees, from the citizens, driven by the employees within the municipality. So the interactions between what the staff do and how they interact with the citizens out there should be something that, drives accountability, drives responsiveness, being able to try to turn around issues, much quicker, being able to create, that ease of access, into the municipality. So the issue of citizen-driven is that citizens have particular needs, they have particular constraints as well. With regards to how they would like to interact with municipalities. You will have, the different, layers of the clients. You will have those that, perhaps are not, able to get to the municipality for one reason or the other. But how do you facilitate the connection between the citizen as well as the municipality? So there needs to be that, responsibility and for us to be able to nurture the relationships within the different areas. The other aspect, of course, which is very similar, but I think I will put it as two sides of a coin. A citizen or citizens, generally have particular needs. But when you now dive deeper into customer centricity, you can also differentiate and be able to segment different types of clients that, need to be there. But the one thing that we've seen as we're rolling out, systems is if you have credible, accurate, and reliable customer data, you are able to deal with customer issues, much quicker. And those systems that were shown, today I won't talk too much about the systems, but we also have, a system called, centralized user support, system that, deals with payments and reporting, very similar to what was shown from Cape Agulhas in terms of how to interact, with that. But that delivery of accurate data becomes, very important. Service, can also be enhanced by technology. So we must not just look at technology as just, responding to email or just as a financial system or just as an indigent system, but we must also be looking at, this technology as a means to enhance service and to be able to keep the municipality open for 24 hours, which is a crucial aspect of what we have. We should be able to facilitate the payments. We should be able to facilitate the logging of queries, and at times be able to get, responses real time. So with AI these days and machine learning these days, perhaps there are some generic questions that consumers or customers would like to ask, which can be addressed, much quicker. And that is how we build, onto the customer centricity. So these are the principles that I'm just covering so that, we get, to at least open up the conversation as well. So the next one is integrated thinking as well as planning, which is the ability to take inputs from citizens in real time. And this, I decry the issue of the IDP, because by the time that the IDP consultation processes are carried out, things have already been determined within the municipality. So there has really not been an interaction with the citizens to find out exactly what the different things are that they would like to see, perhaps in the budget, perhaps in the service delivery implementation plans. So we need to start using the technology to reverse, I think, the time constraints that we find ourselves in by kicking off a process, just like the poll that we are seeing online, to be able to send out, various polls to be able to reach various customers so that they can give inputs of things that really irritate them, things that excite them, things that they are just lukewarm to, or things that they would like to see changing within the municipality and how to shape the budget, within there. So that could form part of how then the thinking process from a city planning or city development, economic development, we can bring in all of that data together. So the issue of co-creation as well, we spoke about stakeholders, and I wish I had put the slide that I put last week, but the point is that the co-creation means that there are various stakeholders that should be working we should be working together as various stakeholders. And I think the point I wanted to add was that in as much as there is national, there is provincial, there is local, and there are also institutions that are supporting the work of government, which are the likes of SIGFARO, the SALGAs, and many other institutions that are supporting the work of government. But there's also us, from the private sector, who are also playing a critical role, which I think we are able to bring some of the cutting edge, technology. So for us, it's about how do we use the intellectual capital that sits within municipalities to mine the data that can be able to support, even the development or the redefining of the local government space as it is. The review of the local government white paper, which I think I'll borrow your words, Mhlekazi, you were saying last week that there was no data to base the assumptions on. It was just assumptions that felt right at the time. But now we have opportunities to deploy tools and systems to be able to mine the data, to be able to determine which municipalities have what needs and what citizens require, and how we are going to change, and the financing of the municipality that is. And then the coherence is something which I think I won't say much, but it's pleasing to see that at least we are sitting here as all the spheres of government, with the private sector, with the institutions that are supporting the work of government, which are professional bodies which are within there. So I think the point, from us, as Ntiyiso Consulting, we just want to at least, add, the fact that you want a seamless, local government, which is also capable of integrating with what province does and what national does. At this point in time, we still exchange, data in a manual fashion. M-Score could be an attempt to be able to move us, to the next, level. But I think we're still having the situation of not putting end-to-end solutions that are able to integrate how government also works and how it also interacts with the citizens. So we would want to see a circle that binds all of these technologies and these institutions together, so that we are able to deploy the technology. So if we had more time, I think we've also done a lot of work around what the municipal office of the future look like, and this is simply a pictorial representation of what we see in municipalities. But very quickly, in terms of in conclusion, is municipalities should be those places where there's advisory. You can imagine that there are businesses that want to invest within municipalities, but as they want to invest, they need to go and see the latest spatial data. They need to be able to see where the data is, where the city is going in terms of development. And those are the models that we believe through technology, we should be building those models well into 25 to 30 years to 50 years in terms of where the city is going. And we should then be able to overlay how the electrical network, the water and sewer networks look like, the roads look like, and so on, be able to, and all of those things that would give a sense to any investor who says, will there be sufficient or adequate energy? And then you can see the budgets that are being put behind to see how the infrastructure is being financed and how the projects are running. So the municipality, as we put it, the queries and the clarifications and so on should be handled differently, whether it's online or in the different cases. So that is what I think we see from a Ntiyiso Consulting point of view. the opportunity to be able to harness technology to create a municipal office that is more advisory and customer-centric in nature. Thank you.
No, thanks a lot for those inputs, Mhlekazwane, and perhaps for the benefit of the audience and everyone who has joined us, everyone who will also be looking at watching this recording. If it was not for you in giving me that break when I started in this space in Mhlekazwane together with Ntiyiso Consulting, probably we will not be here today. I'm always grateful for that. And it's always great that our paths continue to cross. And thanks for those insights, those inputs, which also add value to the conversations that we continue to have. And I'm grateful today that we are not talking revenue management between myself and yourself, and also talking all the other challenges, but focusing just on this issue of how do we create those smarter cities, smarter municipalities, in ensuring that we've got functional institutions. Thanks once more. Colleagues, we still have 149 of us in this webinar. There is a poll that will be coming up. As I've indicated earlier on, we've got 2 polls today, which again, your participation, contribution is very important. Not only, I'll say, for us, but also for the purpose of decision making on how best we can also channel the resources. At the moment, we are looking at the barriers to smart city adoption, and I believe some of them have come through from yourselves, not ourselves, in terms of the charts and questions, in terms of what's the biggest barrier to smart city adoption in your own municipality. And again, as I've indicated, if you are not from a municipality, you reside in a municipality, you might be in a position to pick one of those options, or even in your own institutions. I've indicated we've got public and private sector, we've got academia, we've got normal citizens whom also can be in a position to pick and select one of those depending on your own municipalities. I will allow maybe the next 30 seconds so that the poll will close. As we do that, I will then allow Philip. He had indicated that he will be exiting soon. Just for the closing remarks, before I take Kutlwano from SALGA, and really Kutlwano being the role of SALGA as indicated, the support that SALGA is providing, and the role of SALGA within the digital transformation agenda within our municipalities. But as we do that, as I've indicated, just your summation and closing remark, Philip, before you leave, then we will take Kutlwano as we also walk closer towards wrapping up our webinar. Over to you, Philip.
Thank you very much, Zolani. I think in closing, the content's been excellent. I've been sitting here listening intently. Especially to the initiatives from DPME. I think those are being ignored. And I also looked at the Q&As and the answers that were given. I think, you know, there's a lot that we need to, or that we can tap into from the collective. And a lot has been done by various departments, some of which I wasn't actually aware, I actually forgot about that. But thank you very much for the opportunity this morning to participate in this webinar, and thank you very much for the contributions made by all the parties. I think it's been very, very informative. Thank you very, very much, Tlulani. And thank you for everybody that attended. We really appreciate you taking the time out. Thank you.
No, thanks a lot for that, Philip. And again, we are always appreciative of the fact that since inception of these webinars, I think business engineering is one of those partners that have been there. We are grateful for that, and thanks a lot.
We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Kutlwano, again, I think a lot has been said, specifically around many initiatives, what the role players are doing within the space. And we always say in these conversations, we can't have them without municipalities. We can't have them without the key role players, with SALGA being the one of those role players. Just share with us, as we have spoken, the initiatives that SALGA is involved in, specifically around the digital transformation, and probably, I would say, where are we going in ensuring that we've got that support to municipalities, but the key role of SALGA in ensuring that we do succeed in this, I would say, aspiration of smart municipalities, smart cities. Over to you.
No, thank you, Zolani. And yeah, thanks again for the invitation, and good morning to all the attendees. Yeah, so also a lot of valuable insights that I've gained today. And yeah, I will just add a bit of the SALGA view and the program that we trying to deliver. So from a premise point of view, you know, the digital program is anchored on literally positioning, you know, digital technologies and all these emerging technologies and associated innovations as critical, you know, to addressing local government problems, but also, you know, looking at what opportunities these technologies also provide. And it's pretty much anchored on what we have in the Municipal Systems Act, which kind of speaks to common approaches for local government, finding solutions for local government problems, and equally, you know, facilitating for cooperation and resource sharing amongst municipalities. And that kind of then went to a conversation of value as well. And I think the Cape Agulhas presentation also spoke about value, where another element that we've added in our program and in the framework that we've developed is to kind of position technologies, the conversation of digital transformation, but also the conversation of smarter municipalities, digital municipalities and the likes around this value conversation. And what we mean by that in our case, applying, you know, generic value drivers, and for this conversation would include, you know, driving down, you know, the cost of living for our citizens, driving down the cost of operations for running municipalities, you know, driving, you know, improving the economy in, you know, as part of the LED functions of municipalities, or at least the requirement thereof, you know, revenue for the municipality as well, innovation being one of the levers for that value, you know, bringing the citizen closer, or what we call, you know, citizen intimacy being one, and I think the previous presentation also spoke to that as well. But also just driving overall development and sustainability. And that sustainability speaking to how we use resources, how we look after the environment, but generally improving the quality of life of our citizens. Which all of these that I've shared above kind of, you know, have, you know, quite inform our definition of what then a smart community, smart municipality, a smart city would be. And that would be a, you know, a digitally enabled, hyper-connected, data-rich, data harvesting, you know, city or environment, you know, that delivers predictable and simple services, you know, that improve the quality of life of citizens, but also that, you know, takes advantage of collaboration with the multiple stakeholders and partners. So the, you know, the loose definition we kind of apply on the, you know, smart city kind of conversation. What's also important from our point of view is that we identified 5 things in our support program for municipalities, or 5 areas. One quite aligned with what the Department of Local Government in the Western Cape does, which is on the, you know, the governance side of things, which speaks to the conversation of digital maturity, where beyond the governance and the compliance support, We also look at, assisting municipalities with their digital strategies, not just ICT strategies, but digital strategies that are quite aligned to IDPs and, the vision of the municipality. Of course, frameworks, skills with partners as well that offer training for both the elected and the appointed. So it's quite important that we also provide the necessary training to councillors. You've heard through the different presentations that it's quite critical that we train our councillors in this subject matter, because ultimately they are the ones that approve the strategies, the programs, the budgets, and so forth that gets presented to council. But equally, we do those maturity assessments as part of that program to identify some of the gaps that municipalities have, so that we can obviously have an informed support program. But there are two other areas that benefit from these assessments. One is what we call, product maturity. Some could call it process maturity, but it's the extent in which, processes are executed through the use of technologies and systems. Other one speaks to the data side, data maturity or data management maturity, the level in which planning, sense making, reporting, just analysis is based on the use of technologies, big data, analytics, and the likes. And why that is important is because we then have a program which we call the Digital Factory, where we build, co-create, and white label solutions that we believe are critical to address the problems that we've identified in the assessments, so that we could partner and we can provide them to municipalities. We pilot and then we deploy. We've got a developing and ever increasing ecosystem of partners across a number of solution areas, which I'll share just now. And then so it kind of helps us to help municipalities deploy and implement the right solutions that could then help them navigate this digital journey. The data side, more capacitated internally with a team of data scientists, engineers, and the likes. We're building analytic solutions and dashboards for the use by municipalities, again, for sense making, reporting, tracking, monitoring, and the likes. But to ensure that, as we, from an aspiration point of view, want to get to a point where whether you're a citizen, whether you're a politician in a municipality, or whether you're an administrator, i.e., appointed, at any point in time, you can get up in the morning, access a piece of whether it's on your laptop, or it's on your cellular phone, or whether it's on your tablet, a view on how well the municipality is doing, either within your area or any other area you may be interested in, so that you can actually spend time on things that require your attention, know what's red, what's yellow, what's green, and the likes. So that's the other program. We call it Pulse. And then we have an innovation focused area, which is less on the IT side of things, if you will, i.e. less on the process side, but just more engineering, emerging technologies, and even business models that are foreign, perhaps, to local government, but could add value to our space. And within that as well, there is an innovation maturity work that's coming as well to help with, funding, programs, culture, and just, changing the posture of local government from that space. And the last one is more on the connectivity side, pretty skewed to those that are much more neglected with not enough coverage, and playing on the lobbying side and try to bring partners to actually accelerate the deployment of connectivity infrastructure, because again, that is the backbone, at least, or the bedrock of applying, all these other solutions as well. I did say there are a number of solution areas that we also assist in, from an advisory and support point of view for municipalities. And we also believe that the more we improve in maturity levels in those solution areas, the more we'll start realizing the attainment, at least, of digital municipalities, digitized municipalities, and perhaps arguably smarter municipalities. One is what we define as smart infrastructure, enabling smart infrastructure. I'll then not explain what we mean. Second one is connected citizenry, then connected workforce, smart homes and smart buildings, paperless, new services, hyper automation, integration and security. Then one is a data-driven local government. So those 9 elements kind of summarize the solutions that we're trying to focus on. So when we do advisory, support, and planning, and even diagnosis with municipalities, we kind of look at those areas. But I think in general, what we also share is that you need to have a couple of things, both technical and non-technical, focus on the right infrastructure to enable what you want to achieve as a municipality, and it actually applies with any industry for that matter. The right platforms, to store data, to manage and orchestrate the movement of data, the right services and APIs and algorithms to kind of apply your own business rules to convert the data that you have to be more usable for whatever use cases. And of course, the right applications or systems that are user-facing or citizen-facing are quite also critical. Then, of course, the people element, ensuring that people are trained, skilled, both technical colleagues and non-technical, to actually consume those solutions, or at least to build those solutions if it's the technical side of things, have the right security layers, where there's policies, but securing the data, securing the infrastructure, securing the platform, securing the applications. And of course, looking at your internal governance policies to ensure that they inform what you're doing. And of course, legislation, so that you don't do things outside the legislative framework. And all these things, when organized properly, then can be used to move data from its raw form to it being usable to address those use cases that could help us realize what smart cities or smart municipalities should be, or the business processes, or at least augment whatever citizen journeys are followed when they, consume our services. So that's kind of what we are doing in a nutshell. That also informs our digital maturity, our digital journey, digital agenda program for local government. So yeah, I think there's probably an opportunity for another engagement soon, so we can go deeper in this. But at least at a high level, that's what SALGA is focusing on. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Kutlwano, for that. And one of the reasons we always bring, I'll say, stakeholders like SALGA, you find out sometimes when it comes to municipalities, they're not even aware in terms of these initiatives and how best they can tap in the existing, I'll say, infrastructure in this case. And it's great that SALGA is, I call it an umbrella board of local government, and not confined only on 1 or 2 issues, but looking at the value chain within municipalities. We are grateful for that. Colleagues, today was more an empowerment session, if I can put it that way, given all the information that has come through, the sharing that the presenters and the panelists have made. I will allow my colleague, Dr. Kaywood, just to reflect on some of the questions that have come through. And as we do that, we will then take the panelists just on their reflections and closing. But as part and parcel of that, looking at some of the questions that have come through, because most of them, if not all, have been answered through the Q&A function. But again, it will be great maybe for the panelists just to pick 1 or 2 as part of the closing in responding to those particular questions. For those of you in the audience who are still with us, we are grateful for that. And I see in the comments, the chats, that even today we have managed to achieve what we often call the municipal edge and Future Cities Africa. If you manage to capture or influence, even if it's one of the participants in terms of the conversations, either one has learned something new, one has established a connection that will then assist in taking these programs forward. We are always grateful, and that has come through again today, looking at the chats and the comments that are coming through. We are grateful for that. Doc, let me hand over to you just to reflect on those questions, and then I will be taking our guests from the very first one, Willem, in terms of trying to sum up and I'll say rendering the closing remarks. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you very much, ZZ, and thanks to all the colleagues for their insightful presentations. Jokingly, I was discussing this with ZB last night, and I said smart cities topic is not one that I'm very keen on. And if I may confess, and perhaps be a little bit disruptive, even though it's too late, and maybe provoke some thoughts, I really find the term smart cities to be limiting and to an extent maybe misleading when one considers the South African context where many of our municipalities are rural or small towns, rather than the large urban centers one associates with the word city. So in my view, when we continuously use the word smart city, we risk reinforcing the urban-rural divide, as it implies that perhaps only cities can benefit from digital transformation, which potentially excludes our rural communities from the same opportunities. And I say this because some of the questions that have been fielded were asking exactly about this, this digital divide. I'm aware that the South African Cities Framework recognizes this limitation and advocates for a broader and more inclusive approach. But I think that in our context as South Africa, even though the term smart city is globally recognized, perhaps in South Africa, it would be more appropriate and perhaps more equitable to speak of smart communities or smart municipalities, just to ensure that all the areas, including rural ones, are really included in this digital transformation agenda. And that would go along with the concept of the wall-to-wall municipalities. It's good to know that we have Professor Adwale in Lagos. Chair, they had a question, which I think can be addressed by the municipality that was presenting. They were asking whether or not a teacher outside South Africa could have an opportunity to access hands-on experience in the smart city at Future Cities Africa. I think that is for that presenter to address. Then Itumeleng Mosala had a question that given the lack of IT infrastructure, how will rural municipalities be integrated into the smart cities paradigm? Are we not perpetuating an apartheid-like divide? And I think that's one of the questions that perhaps it triggered me to respond. And to her, I would say South Africa's integration of rural areas into smart cities paradigm, it faces problems that we are all aware of. These challenges are rooted in our history of inequities and infrastructure gaps. Yes, there are good examples when one looks at the SA Connect in the Eastern Cape that sought to bridge the digital divide by targeting a certain percentage of household connectivity and subsidized data costs to an extent. So integration, to the person that asked the question, is definitely possible, but it requires systematic prioritization of rural needs over these what I call urban-centric models that we are leaning towards. However, the success of that integration, I argue that it depends on addressing apartheid-era special planning inequalities through deliberate policies that would treat connectivity as a public good as opposed to the luxury that is only to be enjoyed by a few currently. And then there was a question, Chair, I'll try to be quick, from Grant Brown. He's asking, in our view, what is the most significant ethical considerations that must be addressed when implementing smart city technologies, particularly in ensuring equitable access and preventing digital divides? There's some similarities there in that question. My answer would be, in our context in South Africa, again, key ethical considerations for smart cities would include ensuring equitable access, but more so, the one thing that I could think of was the compliance with the POPIA, would be critical to safeguard citizens' data from misuse, especially with the increased surveillance and algorithmic decision makings. But I think those that are working in the IT space would perhaps answer that question better. So if Kutluano maybe had something to say to that question. Another question, then I think lastly from Matlosana Municipality, how will smart cities concept influence socio-economic conditions of the citizens? For me, the smart cities concept in South Africa specifically presents what I call a dual edge potential to reshape the socio-economic conditions and really offering of opportunities of growth while risking that deepened inequality that are addressed if these are not inclusively managed. Smart cities have got opportunities. They could catalyze socio-economic advancement in the country through job creation, sustainability, and even improved service delivery to a large extent. But realizing the potential of smart cities requires a deliberate effort that would then dismantle these structural inequities, invest in grassroots digital literacy, and integrate informal communities. And without such measures, really, smart cities risk becoming what I call the enclaves of the privileged, exacerbating the very divides that they aim to resolve. Then the other question was for Velem. I'm not sure how to answer this. How has the municipality addressed the risk of theft, such as the stealing of installed equipment like solar street light sensors in Cape Agulhas? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks a lot, Doc. And to be honest, your inputs, they dispel what you shared with me regarding yourself and the subject of smart cities. And I think probably in future, you should be the one sitting on my chair, specifically on this particular topic. Once more, colleagues, thanks to the audience, we still have 135 of us in the webinar, which is great. And as we move towards, I'll say, wrapping up our webinar, I will be allowing each of our speakers, I will say maximum 2 minutes, because we were supposed to be closing now at 12. We always try to maintain that commitment so that we consistently keep our audience. I will be starting with Velem, given all the questions and the comments, but also in closing, Velem, to be followed by Mr. Mwe, then Divet, in terms of them summing up the inputs, also addressing some of the questions. Because we don't have Philip, I will then take Stephanie. After Stephanie, we will have Umielani from Ntiyiso Consulting Group. Then we will give Kutlwano the last bite, also as part of summation and closing. I won't come in between. After each speaker in that order, you can come in. Then at the end, I'll just make the official closing to bring our webinar to an end. Over to you, Velem.
Thank you, Zolani. Yeah, as closing remark, thank you for the opportunity to present what we are doing at Cape Agulhas. I think it was difficult to try and present what we are actually doing in the methodologies we are following in the processes. But I think the integration of every department in the municipality, as well as the stakeholders, which is the citizen, is important. We look at obviously a lot of socioeconomic issues in this strategy as well when we develop it, and also in what we implement and how we can try to reduce that digital divide that is out there. So we are fully aware of. I mean, we are doing in the background things like wall driving, where we drive around we take samples in low income areas to see what is the uptake of internet access or Wi-Fi availability of personal IPs available in this environment. We involve the local economic development department in the municipality, looking at their plans and strategies that they have, and how we can push into that from a safety and the local economic development point of view. And then also the socio-economic development department, where we engage with the very low and informal settlement areas and those committees that has been established there, and how we can meet those needs, or what can we do to at least make them inclusive in the smart city strategy. Yeah, we are actually a very small municipality down here in the Western Cape, but we try to take the bigger approach and the inclusive approach when we're doing things. So yeah, in closing, thank you for the opportunity. It's a lot more can be said, but that's all for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ZP, again for the invitation, and also to the audience to be listening to our presentation. My departing words will be just very quick. It's for us in the Western Cape, it's just to acknowledge, the fact that municipalities are autonomous, But what makes us to be successful in what we do is because of the strong relations that we have with our municipalities, right? That's one thing that we proud ourselves with. And the fact that we are also able to align, our efforts and resources across the province. I mean, working with the Department of the Premier, the Department of Economic Development, and be able to do the greater good for municipalities and eventually for citizens. Because we take the strong provincial strategies and try to align it to municipalities where we focus on connected citizens, and also the other strategies like the growth for jobs, where it deals with the issues of innovation. And lastly, it's the issue of collaboration, because in the technological world, where everything now is pointing towards the use of technology, we definitely need collaboration and make sure that we make success of what we are here to do to ensure that we serve our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Zolani. Colleagues, from a cybersecurity perspective, I would want to say that if you don't have a strategy, you're going to end up buying from fear, and then you duplicate functionalities between application systems. Start with a strategy, determine what it is, what you need, and then strategically plan what you need to buy to put the mechanisms in place. The second thing with cybersecurity is, of course, the struggle to get budget to put proper infrastructure in place. The third thing is the availability of cybersecurity skills. Very, very few municipalities can actually afford a cybersecurity specialist, never mind the CISO. Hence our indication earlier that we're looking at district municipality CISOs. And then lastly, learn to speak business language. We're not going to get business to swing their heads around or wrap their heads around cybersecurity if we can't give it to them in financial terms, if we can't give it to them in risk terms. So from an IT perspective, we need to transform the way that we speak to business and strategically approach them with the impact of cybersecurity in the long run. So thank you for that, Zolani.
Thanks so much, Zolani, and colleagues, just for this opportunity, just to say, well done, Dr. Kaywood. I think your points were spot on in the summary of the conversations. And in particular, I really do feel that, when you look at smart cities initiatives, it's not just about your urban and rural. It's really about an integration of advancements of technology, change. A smart city could even be not just advancing in terms of technology, but maybe better integrating your public transport or better provisioning when it comes to service delivery. Or it could be even the inclusion of having beautification initiatives or even greening, street lighting, etc. So there's a whole array of initiatives, and I think this conversation sparks many to come. But really importantly, I think it's about important collaboration, and that includes that not just including government, but also involving civil society, our partners here today, our academic and business, and also just coming together to envisage a better integrated system and advancing what we have and really stabilizing that. But I think just to thank you, Zolani, for your excellent program director on this initiative, and also getting to know some of my panelists and the speakers, and just appreciating the excellent work that's been done by the Western Cape government, as well as SALGA and the Cape Agulhas Municipality. And thank you then to our Future Cities Africa. Thank you.
Mr. Oleni.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think mine has also been covered in the previous conversations, but I think the closing remark from my side is Let it not be technology for the sake of technology, but let it be technology to impact on the citizens, to impact on the customers, as well as to close that gap that currently exists. But we still harbor a vision of having a municipality that must be open 24 hours, which people can find, solutions, can be able to pay, can get, quick responses, can apply for new services, and so on. And I think that's where the value of a municipality will at least, take off, because at this point in time, if I have to pay money or jump into my car or pay a taxi or whatever mode of transport just to go for a service, I think, it's taking away from the valuable time that citizens could be deploying elsewhere. So let's have citizen centricity, customer centricity with the technologies that we are putting forward, and they must be end-to-end solutions. Thank you.
No, thanks. So on my side, I think just as a closing remark, I'll just rehash that open definition that we've kind of had, which spoke about, being digitally enabled, connected or hyper-connected, data-rich, data harvesting, but not forgetting that critical portion of saying to you deliver predictable and simple services that improve the quality of life. So again, it's as just said now, it's not about the tech, but it's about that quality of life of citizens. And of course, critically as well, the collaboration portion. So I think that's quite important. So the hyper-connected part also addresses the need to accelerate connectivity in the neglected areas. So because they could also become smart cities, smart municipalities, smart villages. It's really about that context, but it's about the quality of living. And yes, incorporating the spatial realities, and maybe also see how then we can influence, the historic spatial planning, and use this technology, this data, this collaboration to kind of redefine it, to make it, to improve the quality of life of citizens. And lastly, from a leadership point of view, this should be led by, municipal managers and council, and it's not necessarily some that should be led purely from an ICT or a digital unit point of view, but should be led by municipal managers and, of course, the mayors as well. Thanks.
No, thanks a lot, colleagues, for those succinct and closing remarks that also provide, I'll say, a direction on where we are going. In closing on my side, let me first thank our audience. I always start with you because, as I've said, we are not doing these webinars for our benefit, but for your benefit as well. Also allowing that space for you to engage. For those questions that might not have been answered, we also allow post the webinars communication in terms of it could be yourselves maybe asking to be linked with one of the panelists or even one of the colleagues that were in the audience. We are open to that. From the team, Future Cities Africa, Den team, we always appreciate these collaborations because without these partnerships, we will not be having these conversations. To this team at the Municipal Edge, also from my side, we are grateful for your inputs, your support, and your unwavering, I'll say, dedication in these webinars. To our gold sponsors, Ntiyiso Consulting Group and Business Engineering, without you, again, giving us, as I've said, that fuel and also the passion to continue running these webinars. We are grateful. Yes, we have had support from SIGFARO, SALGA, and Kutlwano is here as well as part and parcel of that. But most importantly, the Center for Municipal Asset Management. I've seen Mr. Nolte, who is always a part and parcel of our webinars. And you don't want to miss the next one in May. We will be talking about infrastructure-related issues. And I always appreciate Mr. Nolte's inputs around asset management as a subject, but also his experience within the industry itself. We are grateful for that. Colleagues, from my end, we are coming to an end of our webinar today. And again, don't miss the next one in May. You will be receiving the emails in terms of your registration. But beyond that, we'll see each other again next month. And be blessed. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. And thanks a lot.